Crazy Frog. Once there was a frog called Eric who lived in a small tropical area in Hanoi. Eric had his own pond and liked to relax on a lily pad. One day an old friend called Terry came to visit him, and they chatted about life and love in Hanoi and how things had changed over the years. Eric told Terry about the pollution problem he was having with his home. A few kilometers away, a new factory had been built and it was polluting his pond. The water in his pond was no longer a lovely green colour like him, but it was now a murky brown colour, and it smelt like mum-tum. Terry agreed and told Eric that he should go to the government office and complain about the situation, and demanded they sort out the terrible problem. Eric left early the next morning. It would take him about 8 hours to travel such a long distance. He was a frog after all. The journey was hard and very dangerous for a little frog like Eric. He had to cross roads and was almost run over twice. He had to climb up curbs and avoid pedestrians walking on the pavement. Then finally he arrived at 4:12 p.m. and walked up to the door of the office. Eric pushed the door, but it would not move. He pushed again and again, but it was shut fast. Then Eric looked up at a sign next to the door, and it said, "Opening hours, 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eric went crazy and started shouting and swearing at the top of his little lungs, but no one was around to hear his cries of misery, so he turned around and went home again. The next morning he got up at 4 a.m. and started his long journey again, crossing roads and climbing curbs, avoiding pedestrians, and this time he arrived at 11:01 a.m. Eric pushed the door again. It would not open. "Ah, what now?" he cried out. He looked up at the sign in the window, said "Closed for lunch, open at 2 p.m. Eric's eyes rolled around as he thought that his head was going to explode with anger. But instead, he decided to go for a walk while he waited. He visited the local market and looked at some interesting food. Dog meat looks tasty. But ew, the mum-tum smells like my pond. Then Eric got a cold shiver ran down his spine. His face turned a little pale shade of green, and he thought he was going to vomit. On the table there was a sign saying, "Fresh frog's legs." Eric could not believe that people ate frog meat too. Then his cold feeling turned to panic as he decided it was time to leave before his legs became food. Eric got back to the office at 2:05. The door was already open, so he dusted himself off and walked into the office with his head held high. He leapt onto the stool near the counter and coughed politely to get the attention of the woman behind the counter. The woman turned around and looked at the little frog. Her eyebrow raised, and she said, Can I help you?" Eric told the woman about his pond and the factory that was polluting his lovely home. He told her about the terrible smell and the colour of the water. The woman listened to everything he had to say. Then as he finished speaking, he raised his eyebrow again and said, "So what?" Eric's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he heard these words. "What do you mean?" said Eric in a very abrupt voice. The woman turned back on Eric and ignored him completely. Hey, I will not go away, you know," Eric cried out, but she continued to ignore his cries. Eric looked around and saw another door on the other side of the room. Above the door it said, "Director's office." "Ah, now I will get some attention," he said loudly as he jumped down from the stool and crossed the room quickly. He kicked the door open forcibly and walked in with a disgusted look on his face. The director looked very surprised when he saw Eric, and he shouted out to his secretary. The secretary ran into the office quickly and asked what was wrong. "You know I don't eat frog that's not cooked," he said in a loud, angry voice. The director was very happy with his meal. Eric was delicious with a little garlic sauce and some fresh bread. The moral of my story is that if you're a little green frog, it's crazy to expect people to listen to you. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'll see you next time.